Okay, so introduce myself. I mean, I love it because I get to call in my people. But my name is Parthenia Myers. I was born in Jacksonville, Florida. Just born there. I'm from St. Mary's, Georgia, and Fernandina Beach, Florida. I say both of those places because my father's family is from St. Mary's, Georgia, and my mother's family is from Kings Ferry, Florida, and then they made their way to Fernandina Beach, Florida. Let me think how I want to do this, because I've also begun to sometimes you change the narrative because you're coming from a healed space.
Exactly. The narrative changes.
The narrative changes. So I will talk to you about how I how I evolved into who I am today. But it was definitely a journey. And I went through a whole lot of healing. As I said, I'm the youngest of 3 children. And everyone in my family, went to college and they did that thing. And me, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna waste y'all's money. So I really just out of high school, just lived and worked, and then began to travel. And I traveled to Ethiopia. I tell this story all the time. I traveled to Ethiopia in 2006. I was 28 years old. And it completely changed my life. Now, prior to going to Ethiopia, I really became interested in reggae music, and then I began to listen to the messages in the music, and it opened my eyes to so many different things, which also put Ethiopia in the forefront through Rastafari culture. And so I traveled to Ethiopia. 2 of my cousins had already been living in Ethiopia, and I spent 5 weeks there. And while I was there, my cousin Jerry had the most amazing garden, and so we shared the same gates. And I was able to go out of my front door and pick some herbs. I was able to go through his garden and pick vegetables and prepare it for lunch. And it was just something that clicked, right? Now, even though I come from a family of farmers, fishermen, builders, teachers, midwives, I come from earth-centered people, for myself, I did not catch that bug until I traveled to Ethiopia and I saw how the people were living so in tune with nature. Everyone had gardens, fruit trees everywhere. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to live like this. This is how I'm supposed to live. It really clicked in my head. And so when I came back to the States, my brother had a beautiful garden, beautiful yard. No garden, beautiful yard. And he wasn't doing nothing with it. So I said, hey, can I grow a garden? So I grew my first garden in his backyard. And this was 2007. Now, it's so funny because I did grow some things. And I just watched it grow. I didn't harvest anything because I was like, I don't want to pick it. I don't want to pick it. I'm just so amazed that I could really grow something. So that was 2007. And then I went through a transition in life, where I went through a divorce. And I moved from Jacksonville. And this is where the story really gets very, very interesting, because I was in a healing crisis at the time. And so I went back to my grandfather's land in Fernandina Beach, where my mother grew up, right? But when I moved to my grandfather's orchard, this was in 2009, 2010, and I began to cultivate his land, right? He'd already made transition. So his orchard was a mess and in need of some love and affection and attention. And I was in a space where I was a bit of a mess and needed some love and affection and attention. And I was also into the earth, and so it just became medicine for me to tend to his land and at the same time tend to my own soul. Okay, so how I got to Sapelo Island, and I mean there's a story around my getting here. I will say that it started, so first off, the first time I ever came to Sapelo Island was in 2011. And I spent a couple of days here. Didn't know anyone, had been told about it, and got here. It took 8 years before I came back to Sapelo, but I'm gonna tell you how that happened. It's somewhat of a long story, but if you got time, I'll share. Okay. But I'll start with 2019. So in 2019, I was still living in Atlanta, Georgia. So from 2013 to 2020, Atlanta was home. But in 2019, something happened and I began to feel my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, whose name is Willie Mae Myers, my father's mother. Now, I never met my grandma, Willie Mae, but I just was getting this thing in my spirit. She kept coming up. And so I would go home to St. Mary's, Georgia, talk to my dad about her. I would go visit my aunts who are now ancestors, but my Aunt Ollie and my Aunt Muppy, and I would just ask them questions about my grandmother. So I'm feeling her, I'm feeling the call to come home, right? So I go home and I visit my aunts and I ask questions.
In St. Mary's?
Home in St. Mary's,
okay.
Yeah. I asked questions about her and what she liked. And she was an amazing chef, okay? She was an amazing chef. And I asked about some of her recipes and some of the herbs that she used. So I just would ask questions because I was feeling her in my spirit. Fast forward to 2020. All right, the pandemic happens, right? Well, I always knew I was passing through Atlanta and that at some point in time I would have to leave. But I knew Atlanta was a training ground. I knew all the agriculture work I was doing and the connections I was making was for a much greater cause. Pandemic happened and that was my cue and my clue to come home. So I left Atlanta in June of 2020, right? Now, I made another connection with Sapelo Island September of 2019 and came back to the island for a day trip. When I came to the island for that day trip and I connected with J.R. Grosvenor, who is a descendant of the island and also runs tours. Myself and a couple of sisters, we came for the day. I knew then that I wanted to get my people here to Sapelo Island. There's also a story to that because prior to coming to Sapelo, I was taking groups from Atlanta, Jacksonville, Savannah to American Beach, historic Black Beach, along the Gullah-Geechee Corridor. And we had a very successful run with that. But when that ended, I knew we needed another space where we could bring our people and they could learn about the history and all those things. So this is where Sapelo came in. So I used to see my brother online, Alexander, who's now living here on Sapelo. I used to see him posting about the island, and so I reached out to him and connected with him. And in 2020, when I left the city, I wasn't sure where I was gonna go. I just knew that I had to come home and do some things. I also knew that I had to continue gathering people, and so I began to do the Sacred Earth Retreats. July of 2020 was the very first one. And what we did was we camped out on the mainland and then we brought folks here to Sapelo for a day trip. So they would do a tour, go to the water, and then we would go back to the mainland, to J.R. Grosvenor's land, beautiful land, and we would camp out. And so that happened successfully for about 6 months, right? I'm still not thinking about living on Sapelo Island. I'm just grateful to have this connection and to be able to bring people here, introduce them to the community, introduce them to a place that most people never heard of, right? Same way I did with American Beach, but I was just happy to be able to do that work. And then in January of 2021, I'm in a space where I'm I got to go somewhere, right? I'm thinking I want to be on an island. I need to be low cost living. I need to be, at least if my parents need me, I can get on a plane and it's a couple of hours. So to be honest with you, I was thinking about going to either Mexico, Costa Rica, or Panama. Those were my 3 choices. And then I got a phone call. And the phone call was from Mr. J.R. Grosvenor. He said, hey, there's a house in Sapelo for rent. Do you want it? And I said, yes. So when people ask me, how did you get here? I say that I answered the call because I literally did answer the call. And in that moment, I knew that my ancestors, my people, the Most High want me here to do my work. I already started to do the work, and so now they were providing a place for me to get grounded and to get rooted. And so in March of 2021, I moved here. I literally got the call to come. Now, okay, so I got the call, so I moved here. But even when I moved here, I wasn't really sure. So I was asking okay, well, can I do a 6-month or a year lease? She was well, initially I was can I do a 6-month lease? And she was well, we can do a year. So I said, okay. So, did my year. Continued doing the Sacred Earth retreats. And even though I'm living on Sapelo in 2021, we're still camping out on the mainland and then bringing folks here for the day. And then around 2022, we started doing the Sacred Earth retreats and just being here and camping here on the land. And so there is a Black-owned campground here in the Hog Hummock community that is owned by a mother and a daughter, Mary and Francina Bailey. And so I began to bring some smaller groups down here to camp out. And yeah, so we've been doing that. 2022, 2023. I would say around 2022, I started really feeling like, okay, this is home. So I'll talk about something else when it comes to coming to Sapelo and doing work. Because as I said earlier, I was in Atlanta doing agriculture work from 2013 to 2020, growing an abundance of food. And when I came here, you know, yeah, I'm gonna always have like my own personal garden. I'm gonna always have some herbs growing, but I was not interested in growing on a level. I just really wanted to come and just be with the land. Yeah, and just be with the land, to be honest with you. And also, Sapelo Island is one of those places where, you know, it's a small amount of people that live here. And you don't just come into a community like this and be like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. No, you just come in quietly and you allow the land to like get acclimated to you and the people to get acclimated to you, the land in particular, and learn the space. And so I waited for my signal to go. And I moved in 2021. I got my signal to really like move forward with this agriculture work November of 2024. That's really when I got the go-ahead and the approval from Spirit to begin to activate even more so. So in 2024, the Mystic Roots Foundation was born right here on Sapelo Island. Although Mystic Roots as a concept has been in place for a long time, right? I've been doing work and business as Mystic Roots. But the foundation, which is a 501c3, became established in June of 2024. And in November of 2024, one of our programs that I really love is the Heritage Farm Restoration Initiative. And so the idea behind the initiative is this, okay? We want to be food sovereign. Now, we're on the Gullah-Geechee coast, right? And we know the history of the Gullah-Geechee people who are tied to the land from the times of their kidnapping and enslavement and trafficking from the continent here to the Gullah-Geechee Corridor, which stretches from Florida all the way up to Wilmington, North Carolina. We have a very rich agrarian history as a people. We not only fed ourselves, we fed others as well, right? And it's because of our expertise as farmers, as herbalists, that we were able to do this particular work. I say all of that to say that this island has a rich agrarian culture and history. However, it's an aging population now, and so the amount of food that has been grown in the past is not happening. And you may have about 2 or 3 descendants who are growing food, right? Which is absolutely beautiful. But you can also ride through the community and you will see remnants of old farms or remnants of old gardens. And the idea behind the Heritage Farm Restoration Initiative was to activate lands. The concept behind the Heritage Farm Restoration Initiative was really to partner with descendants who want their lands to be activated and to grow food. And so ideally, we would love to see food growing all over Sapelo Island so that our community and our elders in particular do not have to get on the ferry and go across the water and then 20 minutes to the town to do grocery shopping, right? We want it to be where they have what they need that's growing right here on Sapelo Island. Also, one of our programs through the foundation is our Hog Hummock Artisan Market, which ties hand in hand with growing food, right? So the Artisan Market is a place where artisans who are descendants of this island, they have a space where they can sell their handcrafted goods, their sweetgrass baskets, their herbal products that they create, their hats and things that they have, their books that they have written, you know. It's a place for commerce, right? but also the vision is for it to be a space where we can have fresh produce that's available to the community. So all of the things that not only that we're growing, but other growers here on the island will have an outlet to share their products with the community, as well as the tourists and the visitors to the island. So that's really, again, it goes hand in hand. Heritage Farm Restoration Initiative, grow all of this food, but then have a place on the island for the food to be sold to our people, let me correct that. For the food to be sold to like our visitors and the tourists who come to the island, we're gonna feed our people. We're just gonna feed our people, especially if we are utilizing, some of their lands and bringing it into production. Then of course they just get to eat for free. Yeah. So we're in the very beginning stages of that work, but we're excited. Okay, so another one of our programs within the Mystic Roots Foundation is the Seven Sisters Development Project, a micro community. So, Seven Sisters Development Project, a micro community for economic development. So I'll talk a little bit about the Seven Sisters. So there's a creation story here on Sapelo Island. There's actually creation stories like around the Seven Sisters. Even the star system that we know as the Pleiades is also known as the Seven Sisters, right? But there's an actual creation story here on Sapelo with the matriarch and the patriarch of this island, Bilali Muhammad and Phoebe Muhammad. And they had 12 sons. They were all sold into slavery. And they had 7 daughters. And so I want to say in 1802, Bilali Muhammad was brought here by one of those, how do I put it? I mean, I just call it what it is, demonic folks who want to enslave other people. Thomas Spalding. They brought him here in 1802 with his wife, Phoebe Muhammad, and their 7 daughters. Okay, so the 7 daughters of Bilali and Phoebe Muhammad are Bintu, Charlotte, Fatima, Hester, Margaret, Medina, and Yoruba. Okay, and so from these 7 sisters, these 7 daughters of Bilali and Phoebe Muhammad spawned the original 44 families of Sapelo Island who are still here to this day. And so the Seven Sisters Development Project, the micro community, is in honor of their life and their legacy. And again, when I say that it is for economic development, which is so needed on this island, because okay, so let me just say this. It's going to consist of the Mystic Roots Health and Wellness Sanctuary. It's also going to consist of, let's call it our welcome center, reception center, / business center. So it'll be a place where we'll have a commercial kitchen, we'll have a business center if you need to do Zoom, if you need to get on a laptop, computer, or something like that. We'll also have cottages. And each of the cottages, which will be for short-term rental, will be named after one of the sisters. Now, the thing that's really beautiful about this project is that it is going to create at least 9 different businesses, and we will be able to partner with descendants who own these businesses, because we're going to need to have the lawn maintenance. We're going to need to have, the spaces to, we're going to need caterers for our guests. We're going to need to have handyman, we're going to need to have transportation for our guests. And so it's just really exciting to see the vision for the space. And also we're working with 3.75 acres of land. It's going to be edible landscaping all throughout. We'll have herbal gardens, we'll have fruits and vegetables. When I tell you we're going to have an abundance of fruit trees throughout the 3.75 acres, it is going to be magnificent. And so the vision for, now I'll say my portion, right? Because the Mystic Roots Health and Wellness Sanctuary, that's one of my babies. And it's going to be a space of respite. There's so much going on in the world, and we all need a place where we can just come and just be with the mother, which is nature, and yeah, tap in and heal and rest and rejuvenate. And Sapelo already is that space, right? She's already untouched. She's already undeveloped. There is already an abundance of nature. So we're just working with what we already have, right? There's already a secluded beach where you can go on any given day and there's not a soul in sight. It's just you and the creator, you know? But intentionally creating a space where you can come, where groups can come and hold retreats and hold their own retreats. It's going to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath retreat space that will house anywhere from 8 to 10 people, the way that we are designing it. It's going to have an indoor-outdoor feel. We're going to have a meditation space, a space for yoga. We'll have a sauna. We will have an outdoor kitchen to create some really beautiful and amazing food that is growing right there on the grounds. We'll have gardens, again, like there's it's going to be an abundance of gardens. So we'll have vegetable gardens, herbal gardens, and then we'll also bring in massage therapists so that we can really tap into these healing modalities. So yeah, that's the vision for the Seven Sisters Development Project here on Sapelo Island in the historic hog hummock community. So I'm just honored, I'm honored to have been called to be here, called by the land to be here, also called by the ancestors to be here, and ultimately called by the Most High to be here. So I'm grateful.